happy Trans Day of Visibility. Wherever you are, we are glad that you are here with us. Drew and I invite you to light your chalice and sing and pray along with us today. Enter as fully into worship as you are able. During this pandemic, I've really missed getting to see my nephew who lives in California. The first time I held him was a month after he was born, and he would scrunch up his legs and his arms like a little frog, so I called him my little frog. And he would just lay on my chest and sleep in my arms, content. And I remembered holding him again, why every life is so precious and sacred. And that is one of the main reasons I'm a Unitarian Universalist. Sometimes it's hard because we ask each other challenging questions and we expect a lot from each other. We have principles that we value and look to that sometimes we have to give up comforts to practice. But holding my nephew, even if my arms got tired and I wanted to sit down and nap myself, but just holding him, knowing that he felt loved and like he mattered, that was the greatest gift of all. So come, let us worship together and let us be reborn again in love. And join us in singing Come, Come, Whoever You Are, 188 in your hymnal.
Whoever you are, wonder, worshiper, lover of evening, ours is no caravan of despair. Come yet again, come, whoever you are, wonder, worshiper, lover of evening, ours is no caravan of despair. Come yet again,
Each week we take the time to listen to the joys and sorrows alive in our congregation. Together we celebrate, we grieve, and we tenderly hold what is as well as what we long for. Drew and I will continue to reach out via email to ask families to share their joys and sorrows with us, and feel free to send us a message whenever you are so moved. This week we are sharing from our first and second graders and their families. For Joy's second grader Sebastian Halland shares, I'm up to multiplication after finishing subtraction in school math. And my brothers and I got to be in the hammocks. Sebastian's sorrow is that it's been so windy outside. First grader Nora and younger brother Owen Ox are happy to be spending more time with their fully vaccinated grandparents. Most recently, they had fun flying kites together in the strong wind. They are also excited to welcome a new sibling to the family later this summer, but they hope that their mom can feel a lot better soon after a challenging early pregnancy. From second grader Winnie Lloyd, Joy is my neighbor cat Spot, who was a guest in my virtual classroom yesterday. Sorrow is that I had a tummy ache from too much Easter candy this week already. The Hoffman and Salmons family, Althea, Clara, Peter, and Kate share. We have been so grateful for spring. It has been a joy to be more able to spend time with friends, to ride bikes, fly kites, and do lots of cartwheels again. We're also looking forward to fishing soon and starting our garden. First grader Charlie Lofgren shares a joy for going to his grandparents for Easter weekend and seeing his cousins. Sorrows are continuing sadness that his great-grandparents recently died and that the pandemic prevents him from playing with many of his friends. Dad Chris Lofgren adds, a joy is returning to teaching rotations on Zoom, and that my friend Rachel is finally doing better after a 3-month recovery from a major surgery. I continue to carry a sorrow for our family, friends, and community living through the pandemic and the challenges we all feel from it. First grader Felix Thymer says, my joys are getting to see Opa, Grandpa, this weekend, and that more people are getting vaccines. And Felix's sorrows are coronavirus is still around and keeping us from seeing family as much as we'd like. Younger brother Ansel Thymer says that my joys are, I'm excited for an Easter egg hunt, and Ansel's sorrow is, I had a bad injury, but I'm getting better every day. And I'm adding a joy for today's Trans Day of Visibility. I'm grateful to be part of a church community and faith that seeks to affirm, uphold, and celebrate trans and genderqueer people. Unity recognizes that our community is enriched by the inclusion of trans and genderqueer siblings here and out in the world. And we recognize that we still have work to do here and out in the world. We add a sorrow for recurring legislation that seeks to limit the full humanity of trans people, and we honor the complexity of being visible as a trans person, praying for the safety of trans lives everywhere. Yes, will you pray with me? Spirit of life, spirit of courage and compassion, spirit of letting go and passing on, spirit of new beginnings and rebirth, we rejoice in this day. We rejoice as the wind blows wild enough to fly kites and wonder if Mary Poppins is coming again. We rejoice while looking forward to spending time with grandparents and the Easter, Passover, and spring equinox celebrations. We rejoice in the anticipation of a baby and another sibling. We rejoice in being seen and being known as who we fully are. We rejoice in healing tummy aches, injuries, and surgeries. And we continue to grieve as well. Grief for the lives of great-grandparents and all loved ones lost. Grief for every life lost during the pandemic. Grief for the lives lost to injustice. Grief for ways we are limited by this pandemic continuing on, and all the complexities of equity, justice, peace, and love that have and continue to be revealed. And with this mix of joys and sorrows, we recommit. Oh, Spirit of life, we recommit again and again to our principles, our values, and our imagination for what the world could be and how we can be in it. We recommit to affirming and upholding the worth and dignity of Black lives, Indigenous lives, trans lives, every life. May it be so, and amen.
When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I This is, in the Christian tradition, Holy Week. It's the week before Easter. And I admit, I really like Easter. It's springtime, and it makes me think about coloring eggs. And my kids still color eggs. They still look forward to candy, jelly beans, and hunting for those eggs. This is also the end of Lent. And Lent is a 40-day period leading up to Easter. And I don't know if most of us know what Lent is. I know what I thought of as Lent, and still think of as Lent, is the time when McDonald's is offering shamrock shakes and they're pushing filet-o-fish sandwiches. And some of you maybe have heard of or remember Catholics only eating fish on Friday. But surely that's not what Lent is really all about, right? So I'm going to tell a story, a Bible story, that tells us what Lent is. And it is a story about Jesus. Now you will remember, Jesus was born at Christmas, and the angels proclaimed him to be the Son of God. Now very interestingly, everything we know from the Bible and from history of the time that we know, Jesus as a child lives a normal life. He's something of a normal kid, right? We understand him to be a good kid, helps with his family. His mom and dad have other kids, so he has siblings. And we know, as I say, he's a good kid. We also know a little bit that he does what little kids do. Sometimes he disobeys. There's a famous story of him getting lost in a strange city. But otherwise, he grows up like you and I. We don't really hear much about him until he gets to be a young man. And as a young man, he is going to follow in his father's footsteps, and his father is a carpenter. So he apprentices as a carpenter, and he learns the skills of woodworking, of shaping things, of pounding nails, of hammering things together. And I've always wondered, what did he make? Did he make normal things? Did he make incredible, spectacular things? We don't know. But I think there's a point that he made normal things. He was a human, after all, fully human. We really start to hear about him when he hits about the age of 30. And at the age of 30, what happens is he's baptized. Let me talk about this baptizing a little bit. You may also have heard of a holy man named John the Baptist. So John the Baptist is a man, a preacher, who goes just outside of cities and towns to the river, and he invites people to come into the river where he dunks them under the water. These are full adults, not kids. And what he's doing with this is he's having them proclaim, I am going to accept the life of God. I am going to become a follower of the rules, principles, beliefs of our Hebrew God. So Jesus does this. He's baptized. And this is big, right? This is a big commitment. This is the time when Jesus actually acknowledges he's not going to be a carpenter. He is going to be a minister. And he is going to live the life of principles and beliefs of his God. And he is going to go out and try to get other people to come with him and do this as well. After his baptism, we know that he feels called by the angels to go off into the wilderness for 40 days. That's like 5 or 6 weeks, right? To go off into the wilderness. Now, I want us to think about this. This is not like the boundary waters, right? And going out into the boundary waters without food, without gear, would be tough, right? For 5 or 6 weeks. But this is basically the desert, right? So he goes out into the desert without gear, without food. And we read in the Bible that the animals in nature take care of him. I've thought of this. This might be like a Disney movie where the animals come to the princess and bring them food and bring them comfort. I suspect what it really was is that he had to live off the land. He had to eat what he could, find what he could in terms of shelter, drink water whenever he could. You can imagine, though, still, the desert. And the desert is an inhospitable place. What is he doing out there? Why is he doing this? Well, he's meditating. He's thinking. He's preparing himself. He's trying to let go of everything else that's in his life so that he can just really be focused, knowing if I'm going to be truly this minister that brings people to God, I am going to have to be 100% devoted. And so this is what he does. We don't know much about how we got along, but we know that towards the end of this time, like 5 weeks into it, how do you think he's feeling? He's got to be feeling hungry, right? He is burned by that sun, bad sunburns, right? Lips are chapped. He is looking for water every day. He has lost 20, 30 pounds of weight, and he is sore and ready for it to be done. Face it, he is tempted to quit this, right? Because this is suffering. He's suffering this. Why would he keep doing this? So he comes to this temptation of, I'd like to be done with this. And in the Bible, temptation is represented by the devil, right? So the devil comes to Jesus, and this is called the temptation of Christ. Now the devil does not come as a man with red skin and horns and a pointy tail and a pitchfork. I don't think that's what he comes like at all. He comes like a con man. He comes like a salesman. He comes like a friendly guy. And this friendly guy is wearing fine, beautiful silk robes, and he's got a big floppy hat to protect him from the sun. And he's got a cart with him that has all sorts of gifts and new sandals and suntan lotion and food and all the kinds of things that would just tempt you so much after all of this time suffering in the wild. And he says, Jesus, hey, my man, I am so glad to have met you. Is it not fortunate that I am here? Look what I have brought for you in your time of need. And Jesus says to him, you know he had to be tempted, right? But Jesus says to him, no, I'm good. I'm good. I've got a thing that I need to do here, and I'm almost done. So thank you. I will be well. Now, Satan's not going to stop at this, right? So the devil says, yes, you are an amazing young man. You really are. But I do want you to see this. I have some fresh bread, and I have good wine. And why not partake in this? You know, if you wanted to just come with me, we could bring this stuff to everybody. We could end the suffering of you. We could end the suffering of others. Good bread, good wine. Oh, Jesus has got to be tempted, right? But he says, no, I'm going to do this. I'm not about bread and wine. I'm not about those comforts. I have a bit more work to do. I want to keep myself pure in this. And the devil says, okay, you know what? I know why you're doing this. You're doing this because you think this is making you closer to your God, right? And Jesus says, that's exactly right. I'm wanting to do what God is asking me, and I'm wanting to live the life God has asked for me. So the devil says, it makes sense to me if your God is any kind of God, he could just like whisk you away from this. So why don't you just say, God, have I not done enough? Can I go? Take me out of here. Take me home. Jesus says, no, that's not the way it works. You don't tempt God. I don't make demands of God. I live the life that I'm supposed to live, and I listen to what God and nature and the world tells me. That's what the answer is. No demands. Devil says, okay, yeah, you're a good man. You're committed to this. You really are. But the devil decides he's going to try one more thing. So he takes Jesus by the hand, grabs his hand, and he flies him up to the top of a building. And he has him look over the city. And he wants him to see over this part of the city that there are fabulous shops and beautiful mansions and swimming pools and restaurants. And the people are out there drinking and eating and partying and having a wonderful time. And the devil says, Jesus, these are your people. Why don't we go down there? Why don't you come with me? Let's go down there. Let's join it. You don't need to suffer anymore. You've done your work. You too can be rich, comfortable. Have a great time. Let's go. Well, we know what Jesus is going to say in this story, right? But still, I think about him, and I think about this, and I think about how close you are to those hamburgers and to that pool and to the just give it up. Just go. Have some luxury. Have a good time. That's not who Jesus is, right? And Jesus says, I've got this. Let me be on my way. Let me hold to what it is I know I have. This is what I want. And so the devil does give up in this time. And Jesus feels shortly after this, he feels that the angels come to him and bring him back, and he is prepared for his ministry. And I'm thinking that in this story then, this story which is Lent, this is the 40 days of preparing before Easter. We still hear about people saying they're going to give up things for Lent, what they're not going to have. No more chocolate, no more peanut butter. It's not so much about what we give up. I think it's about what we don't give up. Jesus did not give up who he was, and he comes out the other side.
Drew, I'm glad we haven't given up Wellspring Wednesday. I enjoy doing this chapel service with you. And we are going to close with singing Blue Boat Home in your teal hymnal on 1064.
Lonely, I feel no motion, standing on these mountains and plains, far away from the rolling ocean. Still my dry land heart can say, I've been sailing all my life now, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue home. Sun my sail and moon my rudder, as I fly the starry sea, leaning over the edge in wonder, asking questions into the deep, drifting here with my ship's companions, all we can drift pilgrim souls, making our way by the lights of the heavens in our beautiful blue boat. I give thanks to the waves upholding me, ever brave winds urging me on, leading infinite sea before me, sing the sky my sailor's song. I was born upon the fathoms, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue home. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue home.
Easter calls us to celebrate coming through to the other side, spring, getting through this suffering time. It also calls us to remember who we are, what we believe, what our values are that will guide us through to the other side, to spring, to hope. May it be so. Amen.
Amen.